Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to SADPP, the South American Dota Pro podcast. Back-to-back episodes here. We just recorded one last night with Mr. Avo Plus here. We debuted it live just moments ago. It's on the ZyoriTV YouTube channel. But right after that podcast happened, some new news broke. After we had one player, Aretes, get punished for using some inappropriate language in a pub, we had another player cross that line as well in strikingly similar circumstances. So we didn't really, it actually happened right after we finished recording the podcast. So we didn't get a chance to comment on it. And it just felt appropriate to do a little bit of a follow-up there. And then also we have NoPing.Panda, who was the second individual in that story there, joining us to talk. So excited to hear from him firsthand and dive a little deeper.
Hola, chicos. Sorry, do you want me to translate that for the Spanish audience?
Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead. We're going to translate along just to try to make this a pure 50-50 episode. So, yeah, go for it.
All right. Chicos, hola, yo seré traductor, además seré un contribuyente hasta el día de hoy, pero haré de traductor principalmente. Básicamente, yo he dicho que bienvenidos al podcast. Aquí empezamos una edición especial del SADPP. Ayer grabamos una versión que ya vieron hace unas 2 horas que empezaron, ¿no? Que grabaron conmigo justamente, pero luego después de grabar lo que ocurrió es porque fue sobre el incidente de Aretes, cuando dijo esa palabra malsonante sobre la comunidad negra, pues después de ocurrir eso, Panda hizo algo muy parecido en circunstancias muy similares, con el jugador también el mismo. Y entonces, como no pudimos hablar del tema en el podcast, porque obviamente fue después de nuestra grabación, hemos decidido hacer un podcast especial, por así decirlo, para hablar sobre este tema en vivo. Y también contaremos con la versión o la parte de Panda, que viene aquí a explicar su historia también y a explicar un poco su punto de vista para que haya más inclusión, ¿no? Y ahora haremos una entrevista donde yo haré las preguntas en inglés y yo las traduciré en español para que las puedan entender, y Panda siempre contesta en español, yo traduciré en inglés a Zyori, y todo bien para que todo el mundo pueda entenderse y tengamos esta magnífica comunidad internacional.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something before we start, if it's okay.
Please.
Yeah, so I want to point out, I mean, I guess Chad is also talking about it. I did get a bunch of messages talking about other instances of racism that ended up, let's say, ignored. And I think we have to acknowledge that there's a bias in terms of influence in the Dota regions. I think the China incident with TNC is a great indicator of some sorts of racism being punished harder than others or acknowledged harder than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this because SA has almost no influence or power. So to make sure that everyone, understands that we're not in a crusade against South America or anything, I guess even if we have less influence, it doesn't excuse the behavior we're talking about today. And I guess with that said, I think moving forward, at least, I want to be clear that I believe all sorts of racism should be addressed equally across all regions. And at least I will do my best to position myself against anything that I see and use my, small influence to shed light into it if it's possible.
Bowie quería decir antes de empezar el podcast una cosa bastante importante. Él recibe bastantes mensajes sobre este tema y no quiere justificar el racismo de ninguna manera, no quiere justificarlo en ningún sitio, pero sí que es cierto que hemos visto en instancias como por ejemplo de TNC en China que ha habido instancias donde hay racismos que se castigan más que otros, y particularmente dentro de la fortaleza de las comunidades, la comunidad sudamericana es la que tiene menos fortaleza. Y eso es una cosa que pues Bowie sí que quería hablar, o declarar, porque sí es cierto, estamos en contra de todo el racismo, pero lo importante es que de ahora en adelante también hagamos estándar para que el racismo del cual hablemos no sea en las regiones menos vistas o regiones menos poderosas, sino que sea todo el racismo. Todo el racismo es igual, todo es horrible, no se puede aceptar ningún tipo de este tipo de actitudes, y es importante que aprendamos desde ahora a denunciarlo todo y que entiendan que este podcast no está en contra de Sudamérica, obviamente, no me habrían invitado a mí si no, eso es parte mía, no lo estoy traduciendo, y que este podcast no está en contra de Sudamérica, es un podcast solo pensado para intentar eliminar este tipo de actitudes de la escena, sea de donde sea. Y en un futuro, si esta actitud sale de otras regiones, también Bowie hará lo que pueda con su pequeña influencia, eso lo ha dicho él, no yo, para intentar ponerle un poco de vista a este asunto y que la gente pague por sus pecados.
Cool. And last thing before we start talking to Panda here, and thank him for his patience as we get our preamble out here. A lot of people have linked me the 2019 long document of all the other pro players that have said inappropriate things in pubs. It was, big time on Reddit. It was posted everywhere. And that's been the big piece of evidence of, you're a hypocrite. You didn't call this out, but you're calling this out now. And you're kind of right. I kind of agree. And I feel bad that we didn't call it out harder in 2019, that I saw it and went, wow, that's shitty, and then didn't really do anything or think twice about it. That's 2 years removed now, and I wish I could go back in time and change it, but I can't. So the best we can do now is think about the present, the future, and how we can set this expectation and try to communicate what those expectations are clearly so we can all do better for the good of Dota, right? We all want Dota to be better, include more people, and grow so that we can all make more money and have more fun and, do Dota for longer. So, yeah.
Zyori quiere decir que mucha gente le ha enviado mensajes, particularmente sobre ese thread de Reddit que hubo, sobre todo los comentarios que hicieron los pro players racistas, básicamente. Y Zyori solo quería decir que mucha gente le habla de la hipocresía, el doble rasero, y que sí, tienen razón. Es doble rasero, es hipocresía, y se arrepiente de no haber hecho nada en su momento para atacar este racismo. Es una cosa que debería haber hecho como una persona en posición de poder en 2019-2020 cuando vio este tipo de problemas, pero no lo hizo, se equivocó y se arrepiente muchísimo de ello. No era lo que debería haber hecho y ahora quiere cambiar su actitud para que de ahora en adelante esto no ocurra y que todos en el mundo dotero pues ganemos más plata y tengamos una mejor comunidad que creemos entre todos, y tenemos que todos hacer nuestro esfuerzo para que esto no ocurra en nuestra comunidad en general.
Cool. And Avo, is there anything you want to add or throw into a little preamble here before Panda? Just, you're not just a translator, you're also part of this conversation. So there's 4 of us here, and I know the translations are a little slow, but, I still want to give you the chance to, add your 2 cents in here, buddy. I appreciate all the effort.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys as well bringing this topic into the limelight. I feel like it's something that we should talk about both sides. Right? I really like that Bowie and you yourself had the courage. I think it says a lot that someone goes and says, nah, dude, this wasn't right. And I feel like this is the... I will be against all racism. I've always been against all forms of racism. We should always try to do that. But we also have to acknowledge our cultural biases as well. Not just the Americans, not just South Americans, but also the Europeans that are in the chat, perhaps, the SCA people, the Chinese. I think it's a constant work of introspection. We have to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And realize what you're doing wrong, right? Both in terms of what things you find are overwhelmingly racist, and maybe look at that, how that looks in other cultures, and also what things yourself you find are okay that other cultures might find racist.
Definitely. Do you want to say that in Spanish or? No,
I'll just summarize it very quickly. I'll just say, chicos, entiendo que el doble rasero es importante, entiendo que la hipocresía es importante, pero lo que tenemos que hacer aquí es sencillamente trabajar para todos como unidades, como personas, trabajar en nuestra propia introspección e intentar darnos cuenta de lo que hace nuestra cultura, nuestra subjetividad cultural, que hace que pensemos que según qué cosas sean muy racistas, según qué cosas no sean muy racistas, y entender que en una comunidad internacional eso no tiene cabida. No podemos estar limitados por nuestro sesgo cultural y tenemos que intentar cada día mejorar un poco como personas para eliminar ese sesgo.
Awesome. All right, so... Panda, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. I saw you made a Twitter account today to post your statement, just to try to spread it across audiences. Obviously that's one of the issues here. The English-speaking audience uses Reddit and Twitter, and you guys use Facebook a lot more. You guys being the Spanish-speaking audience, of course. So I guess maybe in your own words, tell us what happened here in the context of seeing Aretes just be punished for something like this. How did we get here?
O sea, gracias por estar acá. Okay, ¿te dejo hablar primero?
Sí, iba a decir que nada, que le está preguntando a Panda básicamente, él lo entiende, pero lo traduzco para que lo entiendan ustedes. Básicamente, Panda, gracias por hacer el Twitter, gracias por intentar esparcir tu mensaje, gracias por venir aquí y contar un poco tu versión. Y quiero preguntarte cómo hemos llegado hasta este punto.
O sea, ayer pasó unas cosas en mi casa que afectaron en mi capacidad de pensar al momento de estar en el juego, cosa que no es una excusa. Solamente digo eso para poder aclarar primero. Y yo entré en el juego, estaba frustrado, pasaron unas cosas, yo me comporté mal, dije una estupidez. Y al momento que dije eso, no pensé en mis acciones. No me importó nada lo del ban, no me importó los aretes, solamente lo dije, cosa que es súper pésima, porque yo soy una persona que quería medir sus palabras. Y simplemente salió por el momento de la ira. No me supe controlar, sé que soy una persona que no es muy madura y tengo que mejorar en esas cosas. Tengo que aprender a medir mis acciones y estoy muy avergonzado de lo que he hecho ayer.
He says that yesterday some things happened at home, right, which he's not going to get into, but it put him into a, let's say, vulnerable emotional state, a altered state, right? And it just filled him with rage. And when he queued, he was filled with rage. He's not saying this is an excuse, but just to set the context for what happened, right? When he queued, he was in rage. Some things happened in the game that led him to release this rage, and he just used this word. He says that when he used this word, he wasn't really thinking about the consequences. Like, the thing about aretes didn't matter to him. He wasn't thinking about, like, oh, I'm going to get banned or anything like that. And he doesn't mean this in a, he's not trying to say this, like, try to explain the connotation. He's not trying to say, like, oh, I don't care about the consequence. Literally saying, at the moment, the rage was the only thing in the mind. That was the
It's
only
like
thing.
overwhelmed by emotions kind of thing.
Exactly.
You know
And
there's
so,
consequences, but you're not thinking logically because you're so mad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the moment, he was just thinking, no, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to use this word because I'm really angry. And after a bit of reflection, he realized what he had done. He feels like it was an incredibly stupid action. That's what he remarks multiple times. Just very stupid, just very ignorant, just very dumb. And he feels like one of the issues that he has personally, right, is that's kind of immature, the emotional immaturity displayed in that last match. He understands that he can't do that. He's not in a position where that's okay anymore, and that he needs to work on these things. He's just very ashamed of his actions, and he feels like that was just the wrong thing to do. And he kind of immediately realized once that rage dissipated.
I think one thing that has really come into focus in this discussion is that words have different meanings in different cultures. And there's examples of North American players saying, like, Peruvian ape, for example. And that kind of cuts the other way of, like, not that we need to compare suffering, but kind of where does that rank on the racist meter? It's a little bit subjective, right? Like, the person saying that might not, as we said on the podcast before, you're trying to punch at a 3 or a 4, but you're punching it really at like a 9 or a 10. And I think that goes both ways. I guess I'm curious if he can speak to that at all, if he feels like that's a relevant part of this discussion.
Le preguntan a Panda básicamente si, o sea, entiende que hay diferentes contextos culturales para las palabras. Una cosa que Zyori se está informando estos días, y él entiende, por ejemplo, que cuando que hay regiones que hacen otros comentarios racistas también, como por ejemplo la idea de que los americanos pueden llamarle mono peruano a un jugador peruano. Y que obviamente eso no justifica, no es cuestión de comparar racismos, nada por el estilo, pero que eso sí que lleva a entender que el contexto cultural pues depende de la palabra, y quizá una palabra que tú creas que es muy fuerte o no es muy fuerte, pues no es lo mismo en tu cultura. Y le quería preguntar a Panda, cuando dijo esa palabra, ¿cuánto creía que sería el impacto del 1 al 10?
Cuando dije esa palabra, solamente sabía que era un insulto. O sea, sé un poco de lo que era, pero nunca supe qué tan severa es la palabra en sí. Que tiene un significado atrás, de por qué se ha utilizado antes. Yo era ignorante en todo eso. Ayer, después de eso, hablé con Manuli, hablé un poco contigo, y me enteré ya más de todo lo que lleva esa palabra y todas las cosas que en sí está mal, de por qué la utilizarías como un insulto. No pensé que era tan grave al momento de usarla.
He says that when he used that word, he understood that the word was an insult. And but wait, actually, I want to ask clarification here. ¿Sabías que era un insulto para esa raza? Por eso, ¿sabías que era un insulto racializado?
O sea, sabía que es un insulto sí para la raza, pero es como cuando ellos insultan a él es peruano, yo dije, es parecido a lo mismo.
Yeah. So he's okay. So just I clarified here, like, what kind of insult do you understand it is, right? And he's like, yes, I get it's I understood at the moment he was a racialized insult, but I saw it equivalent to when the North American players called us Peruvian, which we just don't. It's just kind of like the Dota toxicity, just kind of that's it, it's just an insult, another insult, right? And he didn't understand the severity of the word. That's something he remarked multiple times. He doesn't understand the severity of the word. And that the history of the word, why it was used, like, he didn't even understand why it was used as an insult, or like where it comes from, right? So he just understood it was a racialized insult of some sort. And yesterday night, after he made this mistake, he spoke to Manoli.
Yeah, Manuel,
And
Yeah, the manager.
the manager. Yeah, sorry. And he spoke to myself actually as well, and he was just trying to like he essentially asked, "Hey, can I be informed? Like, what the fuck? Like, why is this so bad?" And I can say for myself, right, that I did send him a couple of resources which he asked for. That in his manager also helped him and tried to understand the severity of the word. And once he realized what he had done, it was already too late.
Mm-hmm. I think I have a question in regards to his opinion on. I'm not sure if I want to use the word rules, but maybe guidelines to player behavior. Maybe not in pubs, but at least in official games. If he thinks that would be better because it would make the playing field even for everyone. Just his thoughts about it.
I'd also
¿Crees que
maybe
estaría bien
tack
tener-
on, like, what has there been any dialogue from his team as well? Like, is there any education or just any, both from league and team to combo that? Sorry.
Dos preguntas. ¿Crees que, por parte de Bowie, te pregunta, ¿crees que estaría bien tener reglas para que estas situaciones no ocurriesen? Y por parte de Zyori te pregunta, ¿tu equipo o la liga en la que juegas te informó algún momento de esto? O sea, ¿te hizo algún tipo de ayuda para que entendieses la severidad de esta palabra? ¿Te han hablado sobre el tema o algo así?
Respondiendo primero a Bowie, creo que sí debería haber, porque sí es malo ahora que entiendo tener el racismo algo tan normalizado en el juego, cosa que no debería ser así. No debería ser algo normal de estar discriminando a las personas porque al final es un juego. No es algo que debería ser normal. No debe ser así. Y lo otro es...
Deja que primero traduzca lo de
Okay,
Bowie.
okay,
Luego lo de Zyori. So first, Bowie's question, because otherwise I won't remember. Bowie, he says that, yes, he thinks that these rules are necessary. More importantly, because these rules would stop what he thinks is that racism is just really normalized in the competitive scene and in pubs in general. Like people just think it's normal, and he thinks that's not okay. He thinks it's that I think he thinks that this is also one of the products, right? Like this is just normalized racism, and because there's no rule book or anything to stop that from happening, then he thinks that would aid that situation. And then for the second question, you'll answer now.
O sea, hay como unas reglas que son como invisibles, nunca nadie te las dice, creo yo. O sea, no sé si alguna vez me han dicho eso o que a mis compañeros le hayan dicho o ellos que me hayan dicho. Creo que es algo invisible que las personas mismas deberíamos saberlo porque solamente es algo, no sé, que debe estar ahí. No es necesario ponerlo, pero es que algo que debería saberlo cada persona, que no es algo normal. Y nunca se nos ha dicho algo así, pero debería estar ahí como... No creo que debería estar en las reglas, pero es algo que cada persona debería saber.
So he says, Zyori, to your question, he says he was never informed like of this word. Like he never had a talk with anyone about this word, right? And he says that he talks about these invisible rules that exist in society, right? These like rules that we just understand. Like, I mean, this is not what he said, but like the idea that the N word can just not be said, right? In America, just don't ever say it. He's referring to the invisible rules of society and saying that it is something that he feels like it would have been nice if someone spoke to him about it. If it would have been nice if someone educated about him. But he also feels like it's also the individual's responsibility to learn these rules. So to that, there is fault within him as well, because he never learned these invisible rules.
I guess to follow up on that, I'm curious if he agrees that, like, to me, the DPC is the break point, right? That's by definition, you are now a professional player. And I think before, if you made it to TI, there was some sort of meeting or there's a rule book you get that has some of this stuff in there about betting and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure there's something in there about respect and sportsmanship and that stuff. Unfortunately, that never got translated to DPC. There's 16 teams in every region, so we have a lot of new players in the DPC. But I would say once you're in the DPC, status is elevated, right? You have an elevated responsibility to conduct yourself to a higher standard than, some random 5K pub player that isn't a professional. Like, as a professional, it is a higher standard. Does he agree with that distinction?
Te pregunta Zyori si estás de acuerdo que una vez que se crean las ligas de PC, una vez que se crea este proyecto, que hay tantos equipos y demás, al crear las ligas, todos los jugadores se elevan a una posición un poco más alzada de lo que están actualmente. O sea, no es la misma posición de antes. No es un jugador de públicas 5K, creo que me dijo. No es un jugador cualquiera. Ahora estás en una posición de jugador profesional. Y te pregunto, ¿estás de acuerdo con que se eleve el jugador a esa posición?
O sea, sí, porque es como ahora, al momento de ser jugador profesional, estás en el ojo público, digamos. No es que sea una persona famosa, sino que ya estoy en el ojo público de mis acciones son relevantes para mi equipo, para mi persona y para la organización en la que trabajo. O bueno, que soy parte. Y también eso afecta, es como la comunidad del juego. Yo también represento a la comunidad del juego. Si yo me comporto así, eso significa, es un ensamble de cómo es la comunidad.
¿Y
Y,
eso lo sabías antes? Quiero decir, eso,
eh,
antes del incidente, ¿te eras consciente de esta gravedad?
no, era como, no me tomaba como si lo que hiciera fuera importante. Que solo soy yo, siempre había sido así, es la primera vez que voy a jugar como parte de un equipo grande, oficial, así. Nunca lo había tomado en cuenta que yo era una persona que importaba lo que decía.
So I tacked on a question, so I'll just translate how kind of how he answered it, right? So he answered originally to your questions, I already saying he understands now that he is in the public eye, right? Like he, even though he's not famous, which he said to himself, I don't think I'm famous, but you are a representation of the community, whether you like it or not. You're a representation of the community, of your team, of your region, and that his words have meaning now, and he can't just say whatever he wants any longer because he does fulfill that role and that position. And then I asked him, well, did you know this beforehand? Like, did you know before this incident happened? And he said, honestly, not really. I just thought of myself as an individual. I thought, oh, like my words have consequences, of course, but I'm just me. Who cares what I'm saying? Why does it matter? And now after this incident, well, as you can see, his idea completely changed.
Yeah. A lot of eyeballs. I mean, I always think of the context for any of these teams, your goal with playing in the league is to make it to the major and then ultimately to TI. And both of those are the international stage by definition, right? Even this major has crazy representation. And if you do make that run, if NoPing had made top 2 instead of Thunder Predator, let's say, imagine what the consequences could be. It's like they weren't that far away from that reality. And that's just the kind of stuff I think of. No question there, but maybe just translate the thought.
Básicamente dice que, bueno, imagínate que NoPing llega y queda segundo y supera a Thunder Predator, ¿no? Y ellos tienen la oportunidad de ir a la Major. Imagínate cuánta gente está viendo eso en ese momento y la repercusión de sus acciones si estuvieras en la Major. Pero esto ha pasado en una pública, pero imagina que esto ocurre de un equipo que está yendo a la Major, un equipo que ha quedado tercero de la liga.
¿Qué haría mal? Peor.
Dice
Supongo que estaría como Cucu cuando dijo algo.
he feels like it would be much like the Cuckoo incident.
Okay. What you mean? Like just disproportionate?
No. Actually, let me ask that. I hope he didn't mean that.
Sorry, I guess I didn't follow.
that was my opinion. ¿Quieres decir que es desproporcional lo de Cuckoo o te estás refiriendo a que solo que sería en la misma magnitud que Cuckoo?
Como la misma magnitud. De que yo dije algo racista, él dijo también un comentario malo y sería grande el comentario.
Right, so he's saying it would be the same magnitude as Cuckoo's like issue, right? Which was like a pervasive issue in the Reddit for a while. And he says that it would have been much worse if he had been a player playing at the major, right? A team that's at the major.
Oh, yes. Okay, I see. He agrees that it could have been like a Cuckoo situation where he might have not been invited to the major. Okay, I understand. I'm sorry. I said a little like, wait, what? Got it. Okay. So I guess maybe my brain now is just I see a lot of people are still very upset about the disproportionate punishment, right? I see in Twitch chat the copy pasta that is 2 cases of racism in SA, 2 punishments, infinite cases in NA, 0 punishments. I understand it feels that way, and I think there's probably some still emotional baggage attached to Smash and some of those other bans of like, we went 0 to 100 on the South American players. And I think it is because it was after Valve said 0 tolerance, and we technically haven't heard Valve say 0 tolerance for racism or hate speech. So I don't, just because Valve hasn't ruled it, though, I think that doesn't mean we as a community can't hold ourselves to higher standards globally. So I guess maybe does he have any thoughts about going forward, how we can try to mend this, how we can prevent this from happening for other players and start to unify things a little bit? Just any thoughts about what we can do moving forward? Because I think we all agree just banning players isn't really a solution, right? We want to do something a little more proactive to try to prevent that tool being utilized.
Zyori te pregunta, Zyori primero al público, hola chicos, dice lo siguiente, está hablando de que mucha gente en los comentarios está diciendo justamente lo que están diciendo, o sea, no es muy fácil. Hay 2 bans en Sudamérica por 2 casos de racismo, millones de casos de racismo en Norteamérica, 0 bans, ¿no? Ja, ja, ja. Zyori dice, sí, os escucho, o sea, tenéis razón, pero y también es posible, y Zyori dice que es normal que la comunidad sudamericana se sienta como que todo ha ido de 0 a 100, que de repente la comunidad sudamericana se encuentra en posición donde, wow, o sea, cualquier cosa que hago baneado inmediatamente, con el tema de Smash también en su momento, ¿no? Y cree que el tema de Smash, por ejemplo, es algo parecido en el que la tolerancia cero, esa política de Valve, empezó justo en el evento de Smash, que fue casualidad que eso era en Sudamérica, y es normal que la gente entonces piense pues, que hay como un sesgo en contra de los sudamericanos. Pero obviamente el objetivo es que, aunque Valve no diga nada sobre esto, y esto además es Zyori, aunque Valve no diga nada sobre esto, no tienes que esperar a sus reglas de cero tolerancia. Tienes que ser la comunidad que haga la tolerancia, porque no queremos una comunidad racista, ¿verdad? Sinceramente, ¿verdad? Por favor, dame un poco de esperanza, o sea, decidme que no. Y una vez dicho esto, dice, estamos de acuerdo que banear a los jugadores simplemente no funciona, que esta manera de cero tolerancia no es la manera de seguir las cosas, pero lo importante es qué hacemos ahora, cómo seguimos adelante, cómo arreglamos este problema, cómo puedo hacer que la comunidad sea menos racista. Y esto ahora le pasa la pregunta a Panda. ¿Qué vas a hacer tú concretamente para eliminar el racismo en la comunidad o tu propio racismo interno?
O sea, creo que la mayor parte del racismo viene de la ignorancia, ¿verdad? Y lo mejor sería, que simplemente perdón, habla tú, dices.
He says racism comes from ignorance, right? And that's his premise, right? Racism comes from ignorance, and he wants to establish that.
Así que, no sé, creo que la mayoría de jugadores o personas que están viendo, yo debería ser como su ejemplo de no seguir. O sea, que no hagan las estupideces que yo hago, que ahora sí deberían informarse de todo eso, no cometer errores. Que la mayoría de jugadores que vea esto simplemente, fue baneado, que no lo tomen como, el ban, no lo hago, sino que es una razón para aprender y dejarse ignorantes de la razón de por qué viene el ban. No solo que, el ban no lo voy a hacer. Es como cuando le dices a tu gato, no lo hagas, si le pegaste no lo vas a hacer de vuelta.
So he says that he hopes to be a not example. That makes sense. The opposite, a wrong example, right? of what not to, or an example of what not to do. I guess that's the best phrasing. He hopes to be an example of what not to do, and a perfect example of literal ignorance and stupidity to other players. And he wants other players to also recognize that this is not like, it's not about the ban. You shouldn't be afraid of being banned. You should be afraid of your actions for the consequences they have, regardless of the repercussions on your career. That you should be aware that you are being ignorant and you need to be less ignorant. And that's the ultimate goal. It's not going to be fixed because you avoid bans. It's going to be fixed when you actually fix that ignorance. And he hopes to be a beacon or a leader in that sense of fixing his own ignorance.
Yeah, that goes for North America and everywhere else as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in that. And that's like a very applicable statement to everyone. And that's what I love about it so much. And that's, it goes both ways. Don't call people apes either. I'll go ahead and say it. That's not okay either, right? Like it's all bad. So let's say it's all unacceptable from this point forward. And I'm talking to you, sitting there listening to this. You fucking call it out when you see it as well. It's on all of us. We all got to take part. So I think Bowie has a question, but if you want to translate that, go for it.
Dice básicamente que lo que dice Panda es lo correcto, que el racismo no funciona, o sea, no debería existir en ninguna región. Norteamérica incluida. Y lo dice aquí. No llames a la gente putos monos. No le llamen monos. Una palabra claramente racializada. No usen esa palabra, norteamericanos. Y cuando ustedes vean estas causas de racismo, cuando las vean, desde este momento, el momento de aretes que en adelante, sean ustedes también que lo llamen. Y aquí yo pongo mis propios 2 centavos y digo, dígamelo a mí, envíe un mensaje, tiene miedo de ser la persona que lo dice. Yo me pondré al frente y yo pues, denunciaré el racismo si hace falta, ¿de acuerdo? No es una posición que me encante, pero si tenéis miedo, lo que sea, pues hacerlo a través de mí, ¿sabes? No pasa nada. Esto tiene que acabar. No puede continuar sin esta comunidad.
Yeah, I think I don't really have a question, but maybe just a kind of a rant to talk about. When it comes to what happened, I'm actually really glad that even the Panda incident as well as Aretes, it didn't happen in the DPC, because as we talked about with Kuko, like that was way bigger in terms of like his image and what happened. So I I just wonder, like people are talking about bans and stuff like that. I don't think that's really how we should go about this. Like, obviously, if someone is willingly racist and just wants to say that in official games, he should be banned. But I think what we should probably try to do, and maybe Valve has to step in to do it, is just give the players and give everyone a way to first inform themselves, but also to know what's acceptable or not, right? Because they're just dancing this little dance, and whenever like someone big points something out, it's okay, that this is wrong. But if it doesn't offend enough people, or if it's not posted in the right day, then it just gets ignored.
Mhm.
So I honestly hope we have some sort of guidelines in the next DPC or after TI, because I'm sad with everything that happened, but I'm also a little bit glad that being banned from a small BTS tournament, it's not that big of a deal, honestly.
Comparatively, yeah.
Yeah.
Dice Bowie que cree que los bans no es la solución yendo para adelante. O sea, sí, baneemos este tipo de comportamiento, pero que lo que tenemos que hacer aquí es comenzar a informar a la gente, darle los recursos a la gente para poder informarse. Y que hasta cierto punto está contento de que esto haya ocurrido con el ETS y Panda para tener esta conversación, para que ocurra no en la DPC, no en la Major, como dijo, no como pasó con Cuckoo, sino en una situación como que te baneen de la BTS Pro Series, que es un ban, es algo, pero no es tan grande como que te baneen de la DPC. Y Bowie quiere que esto sea pues, un ejemplo, una manera de que comience esta conversación y comencemos a darle los recursos a los jugadores necesarios para que comiencen a informarse y no sean tan ignorantes. I actually have a question. Well, two
Sure.
questions for Panda.
Please,
okay.
go for it,
So,
buddy.
my two questions were, first of all, I would like to ask if you thought the ban was fair, actually, from BTS Pro C. I mean, I know he's very apologetic and stuff, but do you think he should have been banned?
Oh no, did we lose Avo? Did we lose the whole Discord call? Did we lose my internet?
There you go.
Okay, we're still live.
Okay, we're
Alright.
back.
Hey, Zyori.
I don't know if that was
Yeah,
me or
okay.
Discord, but we're back.
Okay. So yeah, I was asking if Panda thinks the ban is proportion or the ban is fair. And I'm not translating Spanish. ¿Crees que el ban es correcto?
O sea, al momento como que estaba molesto y no sabía, yo decía, ¿por qué me banean si es algo pequeño? Pero cuando ya dejo de ser ignorante y sé que lo que dije tiene un peso así, pues sí es justo, ¿no? Debo ser castigado por las acciones. No he hablado con mi equipo de esto todavía, pero yo me siento mal de lo que he hecho. No es como que, lo voy a remediar, pero de lo que he aprendido, he hablado contigo, y lo más probable es que dé una parte del premio de la DPC hacia la organización, a la DSC, a la que vi hace un rato. Voy a estar donando un poco de dinero de la DPC hacia eso, no para remediar, sino porque me siento muy mal por lo sucedido. Y ahora sí siento que el ban es justo, pero que debería ser igual para todos, como hemos estado hablando hace rato, que no solo debe ser para Sudamérica, ahora debe ser tomado para todas las regiones.
¿Qué organización? Disculpa, ¿estás refiriendo a la que hablamos un rato? ¿Qué significa?
NAACP.
Ya, ok, vale, ok.
Me había olvidado el nombre.
¿Cuánto, para saber, quiero decir, para que lo sepan, cuánto dinero vas a donar a esa organización?
Todavía no estoy seguro, pero supongo que será algo de 1,000 o 2,000.
Okay. All right. So, sorry, that caught me by surprise. That's a lot of money. So he says, when I first got the ban, right, when I first got informed of this, I was obviously angry. I thought it was stupid because it was something so small. But then I spoke to other people, and I spoke to you, referring to me, and he realized, and he says, I realized the weight of my actions, right? And once that happened, it started to make more and more sense that the ban was reasonable. And now, after having this conversation, he kind of understands, and he thinks the punishment fits the crime, per se. And he says he wants to also atone. He feels like right now he just feels very ashamed. He feels like he was talking about his team, and his team doesn't even know about the ban. Doesn't even know about this yet. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
But
Well, they do now.
he feels. Yeah, well, yeah. He feels very ashamed of the whole ordeal, and he feels like his actions, like this is not enough atonement for his actions. And so he did say that he was going to donate to an organization to show his commitment, particularly to ending his racism, and he is going to donate part of his DPC prize pool. He says around $1,000 to $2,000 to the NAACP.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's when I said wow, because that's a lot of money. That's my salary for a month.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wow, that's very admirable. Yeah, that's, I mean, actions speak louder than words, but that's wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's why I had to pause there for the translation. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Great, good question, man. I'm glad you asked that, because that's I wouldn't have guessed that, but I mean, I'm glad to hear that, because that's the kind of thing that I would feel weird asking, but hearing it unsolicited like that is I don't know. I think that, to me, that says something at least. So that's very cool. Did you have another one there,
yeah.
Avo? Yeah.
Yeah, my second question, or actually, first of all, dice que, wow, que no se lo puede creer, que es mucha plata donada, que las acciones hablan... No, eso no existe en español. Que las acciones dicen más que las palabras de la gente, más o menos.
Sí.
Se entiende, gracias. Y dice básicamente eso, ¿no? Que Panda ha hecho, pues, esto sí que demuestra su nivel y su cumplimiento. And then my second question I wanted to ask him was actually kind of related to this, honestly, because I just asked him if he was okay with the pen, right? But I wanted to ask him, like, I mean, I'm sorry to be a bit hard ass about these things, right? But I think a lot of people say that they're gonna inform themselves, and it's nice and dandy, and everyone can inform themselves. But I want to hear specifics. I want to, like, what are you doing actively to try to improve your knowledge? If you say you're ignorant, what are you doing to eliminate that ignorance?
O sea, intentas hablar con personas que crees que saben, buscas libros, hay miles de audios, entrevistas, hay todo tipo de cosas que puedes buscar para aprender sobre cualquier tema, no solo cualquier tipo de tema. Así que te hablé a ti, Manuel me habló un poco, tengo otros amigos con los que igual he hablado, y todos me han dado un poco de información que debo saber, la historia, y aún tengo que aprender mucho más. Solo he leído un poco hasta ahora, tengo que ver un par de videos, ahí estaré tramando un par de días, que mientras que no estoy en el torneo y todavía falta para la EPC, estaré usando todo este tiempo para aprender como persona.
So he says that he's going to use this time between when the Pro Series is down, because he's not doing it obviously now, to just kind of grow as a person. And what he's doing is he thinks that most of these things can be learned if you just put the effort in, right? Like you see the books are available, the resources are available, you just need to put the effort to go through it. So he wants to ask people in the community. I can say that he did ask me previously for sources, like I mentioned earlier, to try to learn more about these things. He said he asked his manager as well. He wants to ask more of his friends who are, let's say, closer to that side, right? That community, the Black community in America, that can guide him the right way. And he has already started to read up on it a bit, which is how he learned the history of the word. In fact, I actually recommended him a book that was literally about that. And he just wants to use this time to essentially become more informed, so that this doesn't happen.
I'm glad to hear that. And I mean, I want to thank him for coming on here and being candid with us, because I think really there haven't been many things in Dota that have been cross English and South American like this, where we're really exchanging notes. Like, there needs to be a mutual respect for one another. And, just as that word is particularly hurtful for us, there's words that are particularly hurtful for you guys, and that needs to be sort of a mutual dialogue of respect of, like, all right, we're not going to say any of this shit anymore. All this shit is now, like, this is deprecated. We're moving on. We're all kind of vouching to do a little bit better, and we're all going to try to chip in with that.
Sorry, I want to apologize, because someone reminded me in the chat.
Sure.
Previously, he did say something I missed to translate, which was
Go for it.
He did mention that when he was talking about the atonements, and if this was fair, he did say that he hopes that this is a like a stepping stone to lead to bans coming from all the regions, right? Like, to actually really lock down on racism. That this happens, like, as you say, like this should happen everywhere, and that everyone is starting to be held accountable, so that the community improves.
Yeah. So, but it definitely goes both ways, and we all have to put that effort in. And I think conversations like this are maybe the tip of the iceberg, but hey, it's a starting point, right? If this even helps just a couple people recognize that, certain vocabulary isn't okay, then I think that's a good thing. So,
and I think this is probably the first time like a pro player did something like this, where like he live talked about the issue after it happened. So I think that's
Yeah.
like pretty brave, and I'm happy that we can have this conversation.
Bowie dice que tienes bastante coraje por hablar de esto justo después de que haya ocurrido y que te aprecia tener esta conversación contigo en vivo.
Igual me van a caer los insultos.
He says, they're still gonna flame me, but
Yeah. Well, yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. So I think that's everything that I had. Is there anything else, maybe anything else Panda wants to say before we wrap this up? And Avo, if you have anything else you want to add, this would be a good time to go for it as well.
¿hay algo más que quieras decir, Panda?
Solo que perdón por lo que hice, voy a intentar mejorar estos días, bueno, para siempre, y que aparte de todo este tema, quería decir que quería saludar a Bowie, que me gustan sus videos. Esa parte del tema, que es fuera del tema, lo sé, pero quería saludar a Bowie, que me gustan sus videos.
Okay, well, that was. He says he really appreciates being on here. Thank you for having this. Again, sorry. And also, as a last thing, I know this is not related, but I am a big fan of Bowie, and I wanted to say hi to him because I'm a big fan of his videos.
Thank you, man.
Wow.
Really appreciate it.
I've been watching your video for like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, dude. Thank you
Look
so
at that.
much.
He's a big influencer. He doesn't even realize it. Look at that. You just made his day, Panda. Man.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah. And I wanted to say personally that like when it comes to these incidents, you know, I am lucky enough to be able to, you know, get both communities because of my upbringing and my privilege, etc. We already spoke about this in the last podcast, right?
Mhm.
And if whenever I see these things, I honestly, I mean, I can't say I'll vouch, but I'll try my best to help Panda because I know like I approached him calling him an idiot, and then he was immediately apologetic, which was the right reaction in my opinion. And I do want to I want to say that I want to continue helping him out, like pointing him into the right way, being like, hey, read these things. Obviously, I'm not a person of color. That would be the ideal situation. But I am also in a privileged position where this thing doesn't get me as angry, right? I have that privilege. I don't get called out for being black all the time, which allows me to put myself and understand the other side as well. And hopefully we can eliminate this ignorance from Panda and from any other player. Because that's the goal eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it all starts at home, man. And mad respect for the introspection, the donation. I think, like you said, Avo, those are a lot of the right steps. And yeah, I believe firmly in second chances. I want to say that very loudly. It's what it's all about. That's what I mean when I say I'm focused on the future and a little bit less on the past, because I think it's all about how do we do better. And if people show good faith steps to improve, I'm all about it, man. That's what we want. I don't think anybody's calling for the cancel forever. It's just cancel for this one tournament, I think is really what it is. So, and if you want to translate that, Avo, I think that's all we got. We can wrap this thing up.
Dice que muchas gracias por haber venido aquí, muchas gracias por haber sido cándido en este podcast y haber hablado de esto, y muchas gracias por también darte cuenta de estos errores y también hacer pasos para reconocerlo, ¿no? Y hacer un esfuerzo. La donación me parece un acto muy bueno. Y que tenemos que hacer sencillamente pasos para esto arreglarlo en casa, cada uno de nosotros. Así que muchas gracias por venir al podcast. Y sorry, can you repeat the last part you said? Sorry.
Bowie, what did I say?
Slipped my mind.
Do you remember? I've already forgotten. It slipped my mind too. I immediately started thinking about the next thing.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I also forgot.
Oh no,
But
I wasn't even listening to myself anymore. Oh no.
I know I missed something, but I missed it in my mind, so I apologize for that.
It's okay. I'm sure you got the gist of it. I think we've got most of it down. So anyway, thank you very much to everyone, though, for real, sincerely. This stuff's hard to talk about. You're putting yourself under the microscope by even trying to have this discussion. So thank you, all of you, for participating and helping make this reality. And I hope it serves as at least a somewhat effective PSA, and we can start taking those little baby steps towards a brighter future. But until next time, guys, that's all we got today for SADPP. This is going to be on YouTube, youtube.com/ZyoriTV. If you joined us late today, make sure you catch that upload. I might even try to splice out an English version and a Spanish version as well to make it easier to digest. But until next time, we'll see you then.
All right.